Hello everyone, and welcome to the Tome of Silver, the show where I randomly select a game from my collection, review it, and add it to an ever-growing ranking list. A challenging aspect of reviewing a game nearly 20 years after its original release is avoiding comparisons to modern experiences. It's easy to revisit a game that may have been viewed as a classic or a crowning achievement for the medium, and dismiss it as nothing special because it has aged or lacks the polish of later titles. It's essential to remember that as video game technology has developed and evolved over the years, games of subsequent generations have been created under different rules and design philosophies. Much like engaging with an old book or film, you'll need to push past modern sensibilities and mentally immerse yourself in the era during which a work was created to understand what made it exceptional at that time and to fully appreciate it. There are moments, however, where you can successfully adopt that mindset, recognize what made a game so influential, and still walk away thinking, that was really not fun to play. Unfortunately, Assassin's Creed is one of those titles. It's a milestone in open-world action games, introducing gameplay mechanics that continue to influence the genre today. However, the game itself has numerous weaknesses that diminish its enjoyment, making it a title best skipped. Prepare your hidden blade, fade into the crowd, and let's turn the page to Assassin's Creed for the PlayStation 3. In the far-off year of 2012, bartender Desmond Miles is imprisoned within a laboratory, having been kidnapped by agents of Abstergo Industries. Abstergo seeks to locate an object known as the Apple of Eden, and force Desmond to enter a machine called the Animus. The Animus allows the user to relive the lives of their ancestors through their genetic memories passed down through generations. Desmond peers through the eyes of Altair ibn la-Ahad, a member of the Brotherhood of Assassins during the Third Crusade. Altair and two fellow assassins are on a mission to secure the Apple of Eden from their enemies, the Knights Templar. However, Altair is as arrogant as he is skilled, and his actions result in the failure to get the apple and the death of one of his companions. The leader of the Brotherhood, Al-Malim, reprimands Altair for his constant arrogance and failure to uphold the Assassin's Creed. As punishment for his actions, Al-Malim kills Altair.
Were you killed? Sadly, yes. But I lived.
In actuality, Altair's death was temporary, acting as symbolism for Altair being demoted and born again as a new assassin. To redeem himself, Altair is tasked with killing 9 targets who are working for the Templars. However, as Altair carries out his duty, he begins to question the true nature of his orders and suspects there may be more at play. Assassin's Creed has a fine story, but nothing much more than that. None of the characters were particularly interesting. Altair's targets are eliminated too quickly to be memorable, and I forgot their names the second their life came to an end. Altair is easily the strongest of the cast, as he has a compelling character arc of letting go of his ego to focus on the greater good. But I'd be lying if I said I thought he was anything more than decent. Meanwhile, our other protagonist, Desmond, fails to captivate on any level. Desmond lacks any significant development, acting more as a plot device and a means of delivering exposition than a proper character. The most effective element of Assassin's Creed's narrative is its dual mysteries. The player is enticed forward to discover the true nature of Abstergo and their plans for the Apple of Eden, alongside the real purpose of Altair's mission. The payoff is hardly anything mind-blowing. In fact, some may be able to predict it long before it's revealed. But the writing can keep enough intrigue between the past and present storylines and how they connect that it remains sufficiently engaging to want to see through to the end. That said, Assassin's Creed's story wasn't what made it revolutionary for its time, but rather its gameplay. Assassin's Creed contains a mixture of stealth, action, and adventure elements. Altair controls wonderfully, and is capable of performing all variety of maneuvers. He can scale most walls, quickly leap from platform to platform, step across narrow ledges, and jump gracefully from the highest heights into a pile of hay, leaving him no worse for wear. The level of control the player has over Altair makes it feel like the chains of what's possible have been broken, providing a level of freedom and maneuverability never thought possible. There are a few wrinkles that need to be ironed out, like Altair sometimes not climbing over a ledge when you'd like, occasionally dropping over a ledge instead of jumping, and the bizarre limitation of Altair being incapable of swimming, resulting in immediate death upon touching the water. These sorts of constraints are to be expected with such a radical leap forward in gameplay, and the occasional quirk hardly takes away from the elegance of Assassin's Creed's movement system. As an assassin, your aim is to kill targets quickly and quietly. Rather than crouching around corners, Assassin's Creed takes a hiding in plain sight ethos for its stealth. You're free to walk around in the open as you please. The key thing is not drawing attention to yourself. Performing criminal or out of the ordinary actions like climbing on rooftops, sprinting through the streets, or hanging around corpses you definitely aren't responsible for will cause guards to become alert, as indicated by the color next to your health. Maintaining suspicious activity or killing someone out in the open will cause the guards to go on high alert, and every soldier in the Holy Land will want to beat your ass until you break the line of sight and conceal yourself for a time. The stealth in Assassin's Creed isn't terribly complex, so long as you focus on avoidance rather than sneaking up on someone unseen, and the simplicity is to the game's benefit. Plunging your blade into the enemy's back and fleeing the scene before the public figures out what happened is continuously satisfying and easy to get a handle on. The only thing that makes the stealth occasionally a pain are these two citizen types, beggars and sick people. Beggars will run in front of you and block your path, begging you for money which you can't actually give them anyway. Beggars only go for you and no one else, locking on and chasing after you like the T-1000. The sick people are worse, shoving you the instant you get too close to them. Rarely do these unique citizens actually affect the game's challenge. They're mostly annoyances that get in my way while exploring the city because they think I have the only hoagie in all of Jerusalem. They should have been kept out of the game entirely. If you get caught and can't make an escape, Altair thankfully can defend himself. Altair can use light and heavy attacks to get through the enemy's guard and deal damage. The real challenge comes from the number of guards that will attack at once, as Altair will often have to contend with 5 or more guards simultaneously. Spamming the attack button is discouraged, as while you're focusing on one guard, the others can attack you from behind and quickly bring you down. Altair can counter attacks to push guards back, if not kill them outright. The combat asks for a more methodical approach, knowing when it's best to press an assault or wait for the enemy to make the first move. This more careful approach to combat provides a fair challenge, although it can be a little sluggish at times, with attacks occasionally not locking onto the enemy I'm pointed towards and going in the wrong direction. Additionally, the counter is very easy to spam, and if you get especially good at it, you can use the hidden blade counter to instantly kill every enemy that tries to strike you. Honestly, the biggest issue with Assassin's Creed's combat is how repetitive it is. Altair has very few techniques to vary up each battle, so you'll often deal with every enemy the exact same way over the course of the adventure. This is made worse by how long battles can drag on for. Once you enter combat and the city is on high alert, any guard passing will join the fight, and I swear there were times where it felt like they were just spawning out of the blue. Since combat is already on the slower side, adding all these additional enemies makes fights last a lifetime. With how easy it can be to trigger high alert status, having to either fight a horde of enemies or run away from the location entirely to hide can be exhausting, and odds are you'll be tired of the combat by the halfway point of the story. So, repetitive combat aside, Assassin's Creed's gameplay mechanics all hold up, ranging from decent to even great, especially when you bear in mind the year it was released. However, it's when viewing the game from a structural and technical point of view that Assassin's Creed begins to fall apart. First, let's talk about how the game's structured. After the opening mission, the rest of the game will consist of eliminating Altair's 9 targets, each of whom can be found in one of 3 cities around the Holy Land. Once you reach your destination, you'll need to visit that city's assassin bureau, who will give you information on your target. Before you can proceed in killing said target, you'll need to gather at least 3 pieces of information on them. This is accomplished by completing small activities around the city, which can range from picking pockets to steal secret documents, following and confronting instigators, eavesdropping on conversations, and other quick tasks. But these tasks won't immediately appear on your minimap, and require you to climb vantage points to synchronize and uncover portions of the map. Once you've gotten enough information, you'll finally be given the go-ahead to carry out your assassination. All 9 targets follow this identical formula. Arrive in the city, uncover the map, complete at least 3 investigations, assassinate a target, rinse and repeat. Once you've finished your first assassination mission, you've essentially seen everything the game has to offer. You'll just be doing the same thing 8 more times. There is barely any variety in the investigations, and what little is there isn't terribly interesting to begin with. The main missions are the highlight, and are much more exciting. Most main missions have multiple ways of dealing with your target. You can carefully approach them and strike when the time is right, or you can go in guns blazing and fight through every guard to reach them. It makes these missions feel very open, and provides the freedom to deal with the situation however you think is best. Unfortunately, these missions don't last much longer than 20 minutes at most, before you'll need to start the cycle of going to the next location and completing investigations yet again. To give credit, the player is rewarded for completing investigations with valuable clues, which will make the main mission easier. This can include pointing out guards' locations on your map, info on alternative paths to reach your target, or hints on how your target will react if you're spotted. These are a great incentive to complete additional investigations beyond the minimum required to initiate the main mission, and they really enhance the feeling of being an assassin, gathering information and learning as much as possible about your adversary before you strike. However, to be honest, the main missions weren't particularly difficult to begin with, and while having additional insight is cool, it never felt necessary. I would always opt to proceed with the assassination after completing the minimum 3. I suspect the reason for Assassin's Creed's lack of variety and repetitiveness is because of how revolutionary its gameplay was at the time. It didn't need unique set pieces or scenarios for its missions because its exploration and stealth action hybrid gameplay were new enough to hold players' interest all on its own. Unfortunately, nowadays, everything novel that Assassin's Creed offered has become common, and players will likely have experienced this exact style of game so many times already. Games like Ocarina of Time are still beloved today, because even though some gameplay mechanics have evolved since then, they still feature a beautifully crafted world with interesting characters, and each of its dungeons have something unique to offer to stave off the repetition. Assassin's Creed doesn't have any of that. Even putting myself in the mindset of when this game was released, it's easy to notice that I'm doing the exact same thing over and over again. With so little variety and that feeling of uniqueness removed from its formula, Assassin's Creed is terribly boring. The player can choose to explore the environment and search for collectible flags as something else to do, but there's very little incentive in doing so. There are hundreds of flags to collect, and your reward for collecting all of them is a simple achievement. No cool unlockables in-game, or a reward for your trouble outside of an achievement and a 100% completion status on your save file. It's a waste of time, put in only to pad out the game's 10-hour playtime. Speaking of padding, let's talk about horse travel. When going to one of the 3 cities for the first time, you'll need to travel by horse from the Brotherhood's home base. The intention behind these segments was likely to help players get immersed in Assassin's Creed's open world, galloping across open plains and mountains while encountering the occasional settlement. However, despite its large size, this landscape lacks any meaningful content. There's nothing to do besides the busy work of finding flags and a handful of vantage points to synchronize. After killing the first target in each of the 3 cities, you'll unlock fast travel, which was a godsend. Once I unlocked this feature, I never returned to the travel sections for the rest of my playthrough. They felt like pure padding. With so little to do, the open area would have been better off being removed, and the game just being confined to the cities. It's a waste of time and resources that could have been better spent addressing the game's numerous technical issues. As stated earlier, I played the PS3 version, and as such cannot comment on how it performs on 360. But my time on PS3 was marred by bugs and terrible optimization. The game struggled to maintain 30 frames per second, becoming particularly horrendous when walking through crowded areas, and the frame rate would jump up and down so often that it became nauseating. Additionally, there was constant screen tearing, regardless of the frame rate. Finally, the game crashed on me 4 times, bugged out a cutscene requiring a reset, froze every character model twice, and entered an infinite loading screen over 3 times. I encountered all of this in under 10 hours of playing. That is just unacceptable. No game should be released in such an unpolished state. After doing some research, I didn't find many people who had issues to the same degree I did, so it's possible I may have been unlucky to a ludicrous extent, but I'm not convinced. These constant bugs resulted in multiple hard locks, making my time with Assassin's Creed a chore to get through, despite its short runtime. The influence Assassin's Creed had on gaming as a whole cannot be understated. It marked a massive step forward for open-world action games, and laid the groundwork for multiple contemporaries for years to come. While the gameplay mechanics hold up in a vacuum, the game lacks heavily in variety, making it difficult to stay invested as you perform the same few tasks over and over. Add in the bits of padding and torrent of glitches, and you have a game that is boring to return to at best, or frustratingly broken at worst. This is one Creed you're better off ignoring. Assassin's Creed will swan dive down to the number 67 spot, barely avoiding the bottom of our ranking. I found Uzumaki Chronicles and Assassin's Creed both to be rather boring, but Uzumaki Chronicles wasn't marred with the technical bugs Assassin's Creed had. When playing AC, the issues I experienced actively irritated me, making this a game I will never pick up again. And that concludes our time with Assassin's Creed. I would really appreciate it if you gave a like to help support the channel. For those who have played the 360 version, how is the performance? And for those who played AC1 in general, what do you think of Altair compared to the other protagonists that come later? I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comments. Stay tuned to the end of the video to see which game our wheel will be selecting next. In the meantime, thank you all so much for watching. Take care, and may we see each other again when we turn to the next chapter in the Tome of Silver.